Welcome to Chat with Sonlight, a homeschool podcast. Spend a few minutes each week catching up with Sonlight. Connect with other homeschoolers for encouragement, tips, and fellowship from around the globe. Plus, we'll explore some of the behind-the-scenes happenings at Sonlight and take a deep dive into your favorite homeschool products. Each week, we'll chat with Sonlighters just like you, new homeschoolers, homeschool bloggers, Sonlight employees and advisors, veteran homeschoolers, and even Sarita Holtzman. Like Sonlight's curriculum offerings, we will explore homeschooling through the lens of a literature-based, Christ-centered education. Join us for everything you might be interested in, from organizing your homeschool, connecting with others, and details on literature-based learning. Hi, welcome to Chat with Sonlight. I am here this week. I've invited our good friend Amber to join us. You may have recognized her from being in the app, from doing helps and hacks. You may have even met her on a convention floor. So welcome, Amber.
Thanks, Johna.
I am so excited to have you on today, mostly just because we get to just be homeschool moms, getting to talk about each other. And I wanted to get to know Amber better and let you guys get to know her as well. Amber, tell us a little about yourself.
Oh man. Okay. Well, how far back do we want to go, Johna? That's a question.
Till the dawn of time, Amber was no.
Oh man. So I grew up in northwestern Pennsylvania, and I went to a Bible college for my 4 years of training. So my actual degree is in Bible, but also with secondary education history. And I did a lot of theater in there too. So there's a lot of things that I loved. And because I went to a smaller school, got to enjoy. When I left college, I didn't know for sure what I was going to do. And by God's grace, and a whole crazy series of events, I ended up in San Jose, California, teaching at a Christian school. And I was a teacher and a coach because I didn't mention that either. But all through high school, I played volleyball and basketball, and also played a little bit of those sports at the college that I went to. So I was able to go there to coach and to teach. And that is what I did for my first 5 years out of college. Met my husband while I was there, and the two of us left that school, went to Chile, South America for a year, taught at a school for missionary kids and expats in Santiago, Chile. Yeah. And so spent a really wonderful year there, wonderful and hard. It's easy to kind of gloss over a lot of things, right, from the past that maybe were difficult. There were hard things, and our oldest child was
giving birth to a child.
It is. That's exactly the same. Yes. My oldest daughter was actually born there. We agreed to go, and then I found out I was pregnant. So my first child was born in Chile, and so she has a little Chilean passport, and that's kind of a fun part of our story also. And then my husband, we kind of moved around a lot because he earned a PhD in biochemistry, and then did a postdoctorate, and then did a teaching position. So in the midst of all of that, God gave me 5 children. So that is kind of a warp speed through the highlights, maybe.
Oh, I think that's good. That's good. One takeaway, I said, all these moms, all these young ladies that go through college and they haven't met their significant other, just hold on. You might get sent to the other side of the US or the world, and you're mister. So
absolutely true. I think that's so interesting, and probably the audience watching this won't they won't need to know that, but it is kind of important that we encourage those younger women that you don't have to come out of college absolutely knowing for sure what's happening.
Yeah, or what you're going to do for the next 20 years of your life, because
correct. It changes.
Even after marriage, I knew what I was going to do. I knew what I was going to do. God gave me something different about 4 years in, 3 years in. Yeah.
And Johna, I would say too, when I was a teacher at a traditional Christian school in San Jose, I never dreamed that I would be a homeschooler. I thought that homeschooling seemed a little odd. I couldn't understand why anybody would choose to school at home when we had wonderful schools like the one I was teaching at. I just couldn't fathom it. I also couldn't fathom being home with children. I thought for sure I would at least have to coach full time, even if I wasn't in the classroom full time. I loved that so much, the classroom teaching. I really did enjoy it. And to be honest, when we decided to homeschool, I was very nervous. So I know too, the moms that say, oh, I don't have any teaching background. Well, I don't think my secondary ed teaching background helped me with littles and teaching them to, like, I was very nervous about teaching my kids to read and do the simple stuff.
That was my experience. I was never going to homeschool. I loved my high school, like where I went to high school. I felt like I had a very diverse, there was lots of groups you could be in, lots of things you could be. Our cheerleaders and football players hung out with the band people. We were pretty open and it was fun. I enjoyed myself. My husband, he disliked his high school. Yeah. So when we had children coming along and he said, oh, we're going to homeschool, I was like, no.
Yeah.
Weirdos do. Yeah. I mean, that
Yeah.
was, and I tell people that all the time. I used to think, oh no, that's what weirdos do. I am not at home with my kids. I am not going to drive the great big van that has enough for 20 kids in it, because then you have to fill it. I mean, if it's that big, you
right.
fill it.
And then there we are. Man.
Yeah. No. And I don't regret. I did go several years in, one at a time, saying, all right, watch me fail so we can put them in school. And over again, my kids did not fail. I mean, I gave them 100% while I was in it. And then at the end of every year, I'd give them that standardized test going, watch them fail. And then they're going to school. And they didn't. And about 4 or 5 years in, I was like, I can never let my kids go. I can never give this up. You know, after watching kids learn to read, you know, their aha moments of sounding something out or figuring out math for the first time, or when we did school and it was really, we were reading a book outside and then they got to play and they reenacted whatever, you know, we were doing ancient Egyptian times and they acted like they were Pharaoh and whatever out in the playground. I was like, yep, I'm not changing this at all. I'm not changing at all.
Yeah, so I think for me, early on when Stephanie, my oldest, was hitting the years to consider putting her in preschool or kindergarten, whatever, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't wrap my brain around sending her to other people for 8 hours a day. I did not want to miss that time. And so and my neighbors, I didn't have anyone around me in my neighborhood anyway who homeschooled, and they all, I remember one neighbor looking at me and saying, oh, don't do that. Oh, don't do that. Keep her at home, you know? And I just thought, wow, I've got maybe 17 or 18 years with this human being. And I want to be the one. I want to be with her and discipling her and spending time with her and getting to know her. And I always kept that with open hands, thinking, okay, if there's a time where we absolutely need to go to school, I want to be away to school. I want to be willing to do that. But it just never happened. And then for us, we ended up moving quite a bit. And I think being home for school was the one constant that we had. That in Awana. we could find an Awana program almost every place we went, which was for our family was a huge blessing. Took something off my plate, scripture memory, that I had a program to follow and they were getting, you know, outside help, which I think is important too.
So how did you find Sonlight?
Oh, I love that question because it just makes me so happy that that God brought it to me. So when Scott and I decided that we really did think we were going to homeschool, it was largely the result. Well, I had met some high school homeschoolers who I was very impressed with. And I taught high school, and meeting them at the same time as I was teaching high school, I thought, wow, these kids aren't odd. They're articulate and motivated and respectful. And I loved the teenagers I worked with at my school, but they were nothing like those kids. I was very impressed. So that made me see it a different way. And then we were taking a trip and decided to read a book someone had recommended to us by Susan Schaeffer Macaulay. So this is Frances Schaeffer's daughter, and that might not mean anything to some of you, but you can look it up on Amazon. It's still there. It's called For the Children's Sake. And I started weeping as I read this book. And she was talking about one of the things that sticks out still is literature, like exposing our children to great literature and not dumbing everything down for them and inspiring them, right? And around that same time, a friend said to me, hey, have you ever heard of Sonlight? I think that would be a curriculum that it's literature based. I think that you would really enjoy it. And I was like, oh, interesting. Well, Sonlight, I don't know. And so I put it in the back of my head. And then unrelated, I don't know, within a month, a completely different friend. They don't know each other. One was a missionary in China. One was a friend in New York. And she said, have you ever heard of Sonlight? That kind of sounds like a curriculum you would like. So I looked into it a little bit. Of course, back then there wasn't as much to look into. And we went to our
Catalogs were very thin.
Exactly. We went to our first homeschool convention, and that was in New York State. And I found the Sonlight booth and had a conversation with Judy Winook, and didn't know anything about her. She just answered all my questions and inspired me. And we bought in. And I never, after that first exposure, I couldn't fathom doing anything else. I loved it so much. And I'm still so grateful to God that he allowed me to find it. It checked all the boxes for us. And I know if people are listening to this and know that I'm a mentor on the app, and I also go to conventions for Sonlight, but I didn't start doing that till just a few years ago. I was just staying at home, minding my own business, using Sonlight. And actually Judy approached me about coming to do stuff at conventions. And I said no, because at first I said no, because I still had a little one at home that I just didn't want to be distracted with a lot of other things. And I mean, I had several people at home, but my youngest was still pretty young. So yeah, it's just an amazing path with Sonlight.
And life is so distracting without adding anything on your plate.
Yes. Yes.
Especially when you have little ones, because, every day is never the same day.
Mm-mm. Yeah. And I have 5 children, I had 5 children. And I think I really philosophically just thought, you know what, doing homeschool with my kids is my job. So when I first started homeschooling, cell phones weren't a thing. Okay. So I feel like a dinosaur when I'm talking about this, but that really wasn't that long ago. So we had a landline, and I just said, I'm not answering the phone. I'm not answering the phone between 8 and 2. Unless it was like my mother or, it was an emergency call. But I just did not answer the phone because I thought if I had a job outside of the home, I wouldn't be taking personal calls. I wouldn't be doing the things, right? So I just said, okay, there's going to be this chunk of time that I belong to my children and they belong to me. I'm going to require them to give me their best right now, and I'm going to give them my best right now. So we're going to chunk off this time. And then in the afternoon, they'll have time to themselves, and I'll have time to get other things done besides school.
Did you get it done? Because I never can get it done.
You never get it all done, right?
The laundry is always there.
The laundry is always there. And the cooking. Rah.
Rah, rah, rah. So any tips real quick on 5 children and getting enough meals on the table without stress?
Oh man. I mean, my go-to at that season in life was to have a schedule. And I know some moms, one of my best homeschooling friends, the word schedule, makes her break out in hives. But I found the more children I had, the more I needed a schedule, or just couldn't do it. It's kind of like when you just have a little bit of money, you got to have a tight budget. If you have a lot of money and discretionary spending, no big deal. You don't need as tight of a budget. Well, when you have 5 children or more, or even, 3 or 4, whatever, you have little people in the home, you don't have a lot of discretionary time. Time is what you have little of, so you've got to budget it. So for me, budgeting time was a big thing. So I scheduled the time for school, and I wasn't iron fisted about it, but we had a framework. Does that make sense? So I planned half-hour increments, but then for things like food, yeah, we had the same thing every day for lunch and breakfast. So not every day. What I'm saying is every Monday was cereal day, and every lunch Monday was mac and cheese, and every Tuesday was, I don't know, French toast, and Tuesday lunch was ramen noodles. I don't know, judge me, but ramen noodles.
Something like that. The package. Are you kidding? Yes, ramen.
something like that. Okay, so. And then for meals, I had a 5-week rotation for evening meals. And knowing that gave me my shopping list. And by 5-week rotation, that just means I didn't want to do every Monday the same thing. I would have gotten really tired of that really fast, but I know some people that do that, and that works, and it's okay. But so mine was, so every 5th Monday we would have this, and every 5th Tuesday. So that even kept it from getting quite as stagnant, and of course switched up in the summer, but having that gave me a plan for the week. And I found that I was most stressed when I didn't have a plan, when it was 5 o'clock and I was scrambling around and very witchy with everyone because I couldn't figure out what to do for dinner and they were annoying me, right? Like everything felt out of control.
Well, what
when everything feels out of control, I'm so I had to have a schedule.
Well, adding on your schedule, I'm going to link on our YouTube video, the video of you with your 30-minute school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that was that one, but
teaching multiple children. Yes, because I think that could work for anyone. I had a mom in the app. I think it was in the app asking a question about what's your day look like? Not me personally, but just everybody. How do you schedule it to be done by 3 or whatever? And so I linked her to that too. I don't know if it will be helpful or not, but hopefully.
So I'm just picking your brain and we can, what is probably your funniest homeschool adventure with your kids?
Funniest?
Yeah.
Oh, John.
Or like if you're looking back and just makes you laugh every time you think about it. Like I can think back where I answered that phone in the middle of the day and I told the kids don't go anywhere. And I came back and one of my children were duct taped to a chair.
Oh my goodness.
So
see, I don't have anything that funny. That is hilarious. I was going to say, my kids are funny to me. And I think that one of the things somebody challenged me about this, to laugh with your kids every day, at least once. Pick a time, especially when they're younger. Of course, you can't do this with the 15-year-old. Get on the floor with your kids every day. Get on the floor with your kids every day. I was going to say that this wouldn't work with high schoolers, but with your little people, get on the floor with them just once a day and see life from their perspective. And they just think it's so fun to have you down there. But try to enjoy them. And I have some really funny kids, and especially my son who had just graduated. I really miss him. But he made me laugh all the time. And I can't think of even just like one specific thing that makes me laugh. But I do have a hilarious story when the kids were little. This isn't even really homeschooling, Johna, but
it's okay.
I was making dinner. I had 3. So a baby, a 2. Was it? Maybe I just had my first 2. So anyway, the youngest one was still in a diaper. And I had just taken it off. I was in the middle of doing dinner, boiling spaghetti is my recollection. And I took her diaper off to change her. And that was fine. I got it off, but I didn't have time to put a new one on. She went into the playroom, which I could see from the kitchen. And all of a sudden I hear my oldest saying, Mommy, she pooped. And she had pooped in the corner. So I said, oh, sweetheart, come here. And she stepped right in it and walked all the way across the room. So I have a footprint of poop across the room. And I'm like, oh my word. And I, took the thing off the oven, grabbed her, like washed her, put some rubber gloves on, started to get soapy water. Scott's supposed to show up any minute. I'm starting to scrub out the poop. It smells so bad. So I say, sweetheart, to my oldest, can you run up to my bedroom and grab the candle that's on my dresser and bring it down to mommy? So she very dutifully did and came down and handed it to me, but I didn't quite have a hold of it. So the candle drops and shatters all over the floor. So now I have poop all over the room, glass all over the floor, stuff on the stove. I was just, it's one of those times where you're just like, you just gotta laugh. Okay, sweetheart, go put shoes on and stay on the couch because I don't know where all the glass is everywhere. Lock the other kid in the playpen. It was a disaster, but it makes me laugh because it just, and even at the time I was just like, it can't get funnier right now. I don't know, unless there's something catches on fire, that also would add to it.
Like a Lucille Ball episode.
Oh, man, it was a good one.
Have you enjoyed listening to Amber as much as I do? Join us for part 2 as we continue this conversation and we hear more about her homeschool life, her journey with God, and more.